2024 is the year of elections. Nearly half of the world's population is eligible to vote. What's different this year, though, is the widespread availability of artificial intelligence. It's a useful tool for campaigners, but it brings with it the possibility of sophisticated forms of disinformation. Deepfake videos and computer-generated photos are proof that the camera now sometimes does lie. I'm Neil Harvey, and today's Newsmaker is elections in the era of artificial intelligence. Truth or trickery? It's getting harder to tell. Social media bombards us with information. Most of the time, it's harmless, but sometimes it can take the form of lies, disinformation, even outright manipulation. And if you couple that with political elections, then you've got all the ingredients needed for a potential threat to democracy.
More than 40% of the world's population is gearing up for elections this year. But a new player now looms large in the political arena: artificial intelligence. Hate speech, propaganda, and outright lies are nothing new in the online world. But as AI becomes hugely accessible, the volume and sophistication intensifies. With countries like India and the US heading to the polls, concerns are growing about AI disrupting elections.
Especially in countries like Bangladesh, India, and Pakistan, where the literacy rate is lower, and most of the people are unaware of this. They trust whatever they see on Facebook. In this regard, such incidents not only harm a political career, but they also affect one's personal life.
With the ability to generate realistic images and mimic voices, the line between truth and fiction becomes blurred.
We've seen a fundamental shift in the accessibility of the tools for creating deepfakes and AI-generated content, but also a massive jump in the realism of the outputs that can be generated, whether that's voice audio of politicians, whether that's even video content, and indeed, of course, AI-generated images. So the change has really been about accessibility and the quality of the outputs that these tools can now generate, as well as the fact we are starting to see them being used pretty extensively in the political sphere.
The threat is real and begs the question, can traditional methods of regulation keep up with AI's rapid advancements? Fake photos and videos of this politician wearing a bikini went viral in Bangladesh.
This is very horrific. I experienced it myself. I knew about it after everyone else knew. The general population should be made aware of this. I saw some photos and videos which are very difficult to differentiate between fake and real. When a victim files any complaint, the authorities must take immediate action and find the origin as an effective measure.
AI can, of course, be very useful in genuine political campaigns, but the question remains, how can we stop the spread of AI-generated disinformation? As the world heads into a year of elections, one thing is clear: democracy faces a new frontier.
Okay, pleased to say I can discuss this now in more depth with Divyendra Singh Jadoun, who joins me from New Delhi, and he is the founder and CEO of the Indian Deepfaker. Pleasure to have you with us. So you have a company that you set up yourself, and it creates, on request, as I understand, deepfake videos, among other things. Just give us an idea of what's a typical request that you would receive. Is it for audio? Is it for video? What's the subject?
So when we started creating deepfakes for advertisement and film industries. But in recent assembly elections, we started getting a lot of requests in terms of political scenarios. So in recent assembly elections, we got a lot of requests, including videos and audios as well. Some of the requests were ethical, and most of the requests, as you can understand, they were unethical requests. So, yeah.
With so many political elections taking place this year, are you getting more requests now for deepfakes involving politics?
Yeah, so we are getting a lot of requests. There is a sudden surge of requests regarding political scenario. So yeah, we have been getting requests not only from India, but from other countries as well.
What sort of requests are you getting? Just to, elaborate on us for that a bit. Are you getting what you consider to be genuine requests that you know are factually correct? Are some of them, requests that perhaps make you question the sort of legitimacy of them?
Yeah, so particularly there are two kind of requests that we normally get. One is to enhance the existing image of the political leader, and the second kind of request is to defame political opponent political leader. So so the request related to defaming. So there are basically two requests. One is to swap the face of political leader onto some different video which might impact or harm his image. The second is to create the clone of the opponent leader and make him say something that he has never said and which can impact his image. And thus, these kind of unethical requests we used to get. And in terms of ethical request, it was like personalized messaging and like removing the language barrier, like making the leader say many Indians. So suppose a leader is speaking in one particular language, the message can be spread in all Indian regional languages. So these kind of requests we are getting, and we have been working on these kind of works. Yeah.
So you've got some positive, some negative. Let's talk about the negative ones. I mean, do you know what the laws are when it comes to creating deep fakes that might perhaps, defame somebody? Are there authorities that you can go to report, I've had someone approach me and I think this is a questionable request?
Yeah, yeah. So normally when we get these kind of requests, these people have a different pattern. They used to reach out to us using fake numbers, virtual numbers, and they ask us to move to Telegram. So these are closed platforms. So we have been getting a lot of requests before political scenarios as well, because we have been creating deepfakes. So we have been getting a lot of requests regarding pornographic content, regarding crypto scams. So we have been able to detect these patterns. So once we get these kind of patterns, we don't entertain these kind of people, and we obviously report these kind of requests. And earlier it used to take a lot of computational power in order to create deepfakes, but now anybody can create a deepfake using just a single image in just 3 minutes, and it's open source. So anybody who doesn't even have knowledge of coding, he can also create these kind of deepfake stuff.
But just to clarify, there are people you can go to, and there are laws that can punish these people.
Yeah, there are laws, but it's very difficult to find those people who have created it, because there are so many tricks and techniques that people use nowadays, using disseminating from a different IP address, from using VPNs. So it's very difficult. But yeah, government, there are laws, and according to the section of Indian 21, so there are laws, and people who are creating, they are getting punished. But but still people are creating it.
Turning to the more positive requests that you get, even then, knowing that these might influence the way somebody votes in an election, do you feel a responsibility, perhaps a moral responsibility in making them?
Yes. So we have not received any particular guidelines. So we have created our own guidelines. So any party who agrees to our guidelines, then only we work with them. So one of our major thing is any content that is going from our end will have a AI generated watermark if it is in a video format, and if it is in audio format, the voice avatar will say that I'm an AI generated avatar. So it will be a kind of watermark. So there are a few conditions. If they agree to it, then we work ahead. Otherwise, we don't entertain them.
You said that you turned down the ones that you consider unethical and illegal. Aren't there many other people out there who have the similar skills to you to make deepfakes that you think are waiting to accept those opportunities?
They are creating. So recently, few journalists have done a sting operation, and they have found out few agencies, PR agencies, who are doing these kind of unethical requests. And when we talk about the political scenario, in politics, love and war, everything is fair. They consider it, so it's normal to them.
If we talk about I mean, it exists, as you said, and there are people to be willing to be unscrupulous. How powerful is it? What's the influence it holds? Does it have the power to, for example, tip the balance in a very close election? If we think about the upcoming US election in November, let's say it's as close as it was last time, would AI manufactured deepfakes be enough to tip the balance, do you think?
Definitely. It's not just about, it is going to be heavily disrupting the elections, and the threat of AI disrupting elections is real. So, but it can definitely sway the emotions and behavior of the voter. So suppose I am affiliated to one particular political leader, and I've never met him, but there is another political leader, B, and he sends me a personalized video message. And if I think it's a real video, even if I'm affiliated to that particular guy, but I have not met him, he has sent me personalized message, which is very more immersive and which is more personalized. So my affiliation might shift to that guy. If it is not, if there is no AI generated watermark, if I feel that it is real, then it might sway my affiliation. So these things can happen. Yeah.
Can I ask you one last quick question, if I may? When it comes to responsibility, there are deep fakes that will be passed around on social media platforms. Largely, that's where they will be. Who do you hold responsible? Do you think it's down to the platforms themselves? Do you hold the users who post them and share them around responsible? Where does the blame lie?
So currently, everyone should be responsible. Everyone, like not even the platforms, but the voters, the government, everybody should come together to fight against this. Because recently, I saw an ad on Instagram. It was a deepfake, and it was ad. It was not a normal video that was posted. It was an ad. It was because when we post an ad, it goes through different levels of platforms, different level of layers. And I saw that ad, and I reported it. And you know what happened is, which is much more concerning, they said, the Instagram replied to me that this video doesn't violate any of our policy. This is very much more concerning. I shared that video with so many people and reported it, and then it put down. So you see, it's not working. Their detection algorithm is not good. They are putting these kind of videos down on the basis of number of reports. So it's very concerning. So everybody should take part in it. Even the defect detection algorithms are not perfect. There are so many false positives, and there are so many cases. So it's duty of everybody, not just the platforms, government. It's the duty of we as people as well.
Divyendra, really appreciate your time. Thanks so much, and appreciate the benefit of your expertise. Okay, let's debate this subject now with a panel of guests. Joining me from Nairobi, Odanga Madung is a data journalist and a researcher at the Mozilla Foundation. From Michigan is Hafiz Malik, a professor of electrical and computer engineering at the University of Michigan, Dearborn. And from Hamburg, Germany, we have Jobst Landgrebe, who is the author of Why Machines Will Never Rule the World, Artificial Intelligence Without Fear. Welcome to you all, gentlemen. I hope for a free-flowing and open discussion. Lots for us to talk about. I'd like to come first to you, Odanga, because social media platforms, it seems to me as a novice, that's where disinformation first seems to get, as I think the term is, onboarded, where it gets into the system and then it gets shared around a lot. So do you hold the social media platforms responsible for the spread of disinformation and deepfakes?
Well, they're the primary mechanism by which majority of dangerous information that is created via generative AI systems is spread. So you could say to some extent that they are partly to blame for the kind of risks or mess that we face within this ecosystem. So, the blame is partly on the people that create the generative AI tools. But these tools are only as good as the ecosystems or rather the mechanisms that allow these types of content to spread across the world and infiltrate different political systems. So it's not entirely implausible that social media platforms have a role to play in this entire situation.
I understand there are laws in place to punish those who act beyond the boundaries by creating deep fakes, but the platforms themselves, this is where it seems to be that the sort of the virus, so to speak, spreads, and it spreads very quickly. So in that sense, is there regulation in place? Does there need to be regulation in place to stop that from happening?
So the thing is, already a lot of platforms already have rules against what we would like to call synthetic content or the malicious use of synthetic content. The big problem tends to come in the enforcement of said rules. The platforms have not been able to sort of stamp out synthetic content being distributed within their ecosystems as effectively as they may have wanted to. And that is why we are currently even having this conversation right now. It's not for a lack of policies or not for a lack of governance that this is a problem. This is largely a problem of enforcement. Platforms have been dealing with synthetic content and other forms of generative artificial intelligence content actually for a while now. The only issue has been in terms of what their capacity to enforce the guidelines that they present to their users has been. And I think that's where a lot of glaring discrepancies have been noticed.
Let's bring in Hafiz at this point. Hafiz, as I read just today, the major tech companies, so I'm talking about the likes of Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft, all the big ones, OpenAI, TikTok, back in February, they signed an accord under which they agreed to adopt what they called reasonable precautions to prevent AI from disrupting the many elections that are upcoming this year. But under that accord, they didn't agree to ban users, they didn't agree to remove material, as I understand it. They only agreed to detect disinformation and to label it. That doesn't seem like very strong action. Why would they not be removing and banning?
I mean, it depends. The thing is, these social media platforms, they make money out of what? Like making money by sharing, by virality, and all those kind of things. That's like basically one of their business models. So completely banning, meaning if you find something really unbelievable, something which is like basically kind of enticing, so you would like to share. So if they ban that thing, that is basically they're cutting down on their stream of revenue and all those kind of things. So that's one of the factors. As far as like basically going in the direction of detecting deepfakes, so far, as the previous guest also mentioned, most of these platforms, their tools are limited. And like for me, it is kind of mind-boggling that why these companies, big, huge, multi-billion-dollar, trillion-dollar companies, are unable to basically develop tools that are robust enough to detect these deepfake or AI-generated content that are like spreading lies and falsehood.
Let's bring in Jobst if I can at this point. So, Jobst, just by the book that you wrote, why you don't kind of fear artificial intelligence, but if you've got Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, saying that AI could harm the world, it doesn't seem to me it's in his interest to argue against his own business. Shouldn't we be concerned and listen to him?
Well, certainly deepfakes and synthetic content are a threat. But we have to think of who can actually produce this and who does it. So we have private actors, and there's a big spectrum of those, from kind of political terrorists or radicals and extremists to I would say those which have a less malicious intent. And then there's of course public actors who can also spread deepfake. So we basically have the problem that deepfakes can come both from private and public source, and it's naive to believe that they will not be used if they can be used. Now, why are they so hard to stop? They are so hard to stop because the classifiers that can be built to detect them, they create false positives, right? And so if you would basically use a classifier and say all deepfakes must be stopped in social media, then you would have the problem that due to the false positives, unless a human checks again, for every video or other content, whether it's in his opinion harmful, you would basically block a lot. And so because of the false positives. And therefore, it's practically unfeasible to eliminate deepfakes completely, unless you want to, eliminate a huge proportion, much huger proportion than is actually wanted by anyone. And this is why it's so hard to deal with them.
If it's so hard to remove the deepfakes, what if we just get people to get their news from reputable news organizations and stop people getting news from social media, which seems to be an increasing trend?
Because reputable news organizations can also, of course, create fakes. The problem is that, let's say, what is a reputable news organization? For a Russian audience, RT or another Russian medium is perfectly reputable. For us, it's not. And so, globally speaking, what is reputable for whom? So that's very difficult. And basically all the content from reputable news organizations can spread into the social media. So I think, and that's the key point I want to make, because technically it's impossible to really get rid of deepfakes without paying a very high price, we should reconsider the individual's responsibility. There have always been rumors in media and dangerous content, and there is a responsible user who has to consider what to make of what he or she is consuming. And so I think that we have in the West the idea of free individuals who are capable of making their own judgments. And this is the most important mechanism that is available against any kind of rumors and negative news or fakes or whatever. And that has always been the case. So without, the responsibility of the individual, this problem can never be solved.
Odanga, coming back to you, I spoke to a gentleman who makes deepfake videos, and he said that they have the potential to decide elections, especially close-run ones. If we're talking about influence of disinformation on elections, where do you think the bigger threat comes from? Is it from within countries, or does it come from state actors trying to influence other nations' elections?
I think the threat is equal on both sides, depending on the kind of fault lines the person who's making the disinformation is looking to try and manipulate. I don't think whether the influence is coming from within or outside that changes the risk profile of the usage of generative, or rather of the usage of generative AI disinformation. I think the most important thing is what is the target of the person that is trying to create this type of content. Are they looking to stoke hatred? Are they looking to stoke fear? Because those are the things that I think tend to have the most impact within elections. What I can say from a global South perspective, and specifically from the perspective of a Kenyan who has witnessed election interference from foreign entities happen before, what we do need to be concerned about is the exportation and the diffusion of generative AI capabilities from countries that will have tried them out in this initial phase of the popularity of these tools, especially within 2024 elections, in countries such as India, the US, Mexico, and watch how perhaps those methods that may have been learned this year end up spreading across to other countries that will end up having elections next year. There's a whole bunch of election vendors that I think will be looking towards not only trying to figure out how to use those methods in their countries, but also figure out how to scale the production of the content that they have been
Hafiz, I want to come back
to other elections as well.
I want to come back to you, Hafiz.
Yes.
We talked about AI used to make deep fakes. Can it be used at a much deeper level? I'm thinking here about interfering with online voting systems, which are increasingly being used.
I mean, it is possible, as you said about online voting system. Again, the thing is, AI can be used, okay? Deepfake can be used, but we need to be clearly knowing what application we're talking about here. More specifically in this regard, online voting system, I think the hacking is more threat than basically deepfake. AI, yes, can be, because you can delay the, you can create kind of artificial congestion in the network, and the votes are cast like basically slower, etc. So those kind of things are going in this regard. I think, online voting, probably I don't see a bigger threat in this case. It's more of a public opinion that before casting the vote is, I think, more important to me.
Jobst, sorry to interrupt you, Hafiz, because I want to squeeze one more question into Jobst. Jobst, I read that you believe in building AI-powered systems to detect AI disinformation. So do you envisage an online world in which you have AI fighting other AI in this online disinformation war while human beings watch?
That's already happening.
Sorry, this is for Jobst.
It's already happening, and basically for every neural network that you can build to create deepfakes, you can build another neural network with the same computational capabilities that can also detect it. The problem is that the detection will never be perfect, so that you have false negatives and false positives, and so therefore some of the content will always get through. One big problem is the following: AI detection algorithms cannot distinguish the semantics of what's going on. So they cannot interpret the meaning. They can only find patterns that make it likely that something is a deep fake, but they don't understand the content, especially not of video, but also not of text. And so therefore, classifying content with regard to what it actually means is almost impossible with machines, or works very poorly. In the book, we describe why that's the case. And so this means that the ultimate responsibility is always with those who basically run the platforms or consume them. And basically, because the platforms can't afford to check the millions and trillions and billions of content that are posted in short time intervals, in the end, we have to rely on the user, unfortunately. Or we have to really, really, clamp down on content in social media, but also in the internet in general.
Well, it's a big problem, and it sounds like from everything that you've all said that it's one that everybody together is going to have to work on combating. Thanks so much for your contributions. Appreciate your time and your expertise, Hafiz, Jobst and Odanga. And thank you to you guys at home for watching. As always, you can follow us, remember, on X, and please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. This was the Newsmakers. I'm Neil Harvey. See you again.